Voy a pedir unos auriculares para
הנה רודריגו.
y con los auriculares se va.
Sí,
No,
sí.
Normalmente sí, porque cierran directamente y coge solo el sonido de tu voz.
מיכאל, אתה שומע אותי?
כן, שלום, אני שומע אותך.
מה שלומך?
בסדר גמור.
יופי, יופי.
סוף סוף אפשר לראות את זה.
כן, כן.
הפעלתי את המיקרופון. כן, כן.
Very good landscape.
באיזה שפה תארך ההרצאה?
מה זה?
אהלן רן, מה שלומך?
אהלן, מה נשמע?
ערב טוב.
בסדר, ערב
בני
טוב.
קורונה נפגשים על המסך, מה לעשות?
כן.
Hello, Daniel.
Unmute. Hello, Jorgen. How are you, everyone? Rodrigo.
Hello.
Buenas
Ciao.
tardes, buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
So we will wait a few minutes more that everyone can come tonight, as it's an historical moment with this amount of people for such a premium wine and a real fine wine tasting for so many people in Israel to know the wonderful wines of Rodrigo and Raul. And I see that Raul is working on his beard to be back, but still have long time until it will be
The same.
back to the greatness.
Back to greatness.
So it's great to have you with us and great to have Jorgen, which we can introduce him. Jorgen, he worked together with Raul and Rodrigo. He's making all the connection for us and for Perlo Burgundy and for everyone. And it's decision making there is everyone together. We will have Jorgen with us to also translate for English from Spanish and everything we will need. As I will just say some things in Hebrew. אז שלום, קודם כל שלום לכולם, איזה כיף לראות כל כך הרבה פרצופים, אנחנו פה באמת 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 בטעימה היסטורית עם שני אנשים מדהימים, תכירו אותם עוד מעט, תכירו את יורגן שהוא באמת איש הקשר לכל הדברים, הוא מנהל את כל העניין השיווק של היקבים האלה, אנחנו בקשר רציף כל הזמן איתם, וממש ממש כיף להביא פה בפעם הראשונה, זה הפעם הראשונה, זה היבוא הראשון לארץ, זה הגיע לארץ לפני ממש מספר חודשים, הבקבוקים נחו מספיק טוב, ואנחנו ממש יכולים לטעום אותם היום. זה באמת טעימה שהיא טעימה היסטורית מבחינת כמות האנשים, גם אם תיקחו את טעימה הכי גדולה שהייתה אולי באיזשהו זום פיין, אז אקר מרול הצליחו לעשות עם ליז'ה בלר 70 איש, וגם לא בדיוק טעמו את העינות יחד.
ולא אותה קונוטציה.
זה באמת מרגש להביא אותם, וגם אחרי הטעימה תהיה מחירה, כולם יוכלו לרכוש את העינות ישר באתר, דור צלל כאן זה המקצוען האמיתי מבין כולנו, והוא עושה את כל העבודה בעניין הזה. אז אני אמשיך חזרה לאנגלית, אני אתן ליורגן, ניתן לראול ורודריגו להציג את עצמם, ולאט לאט עוד אנשים ייכנסו, ואנחנו נמשיך. אז אם מישהו, תוך כדי הטעימה, כל מה שתרצו לשאול, יש צ'אט, תרשמו בעברית ואנחנו נתרגם ליורגן לאנגלית, או תרשמו ישר באנגלית והם יראו, מה שתרצו, דברו חופשי, חשוב לנו, חשוב לכולנו. So, Jorgen, I'm giving you and Raul and Rodrigo now the, to speak, and it's all yours to make the introduction. I explained a little bit on Hebrew, but now, the best will be that all of you have the words, as if I come even with my clients to the tasting, we think like it is coming to the wineries. It's the best we can to be closer to the winemakers. So as in every winery, the winemakers are speaking when they introducing the wine. Yeah. So I'm only here,
I think it's going to be, Jürgen, I think it's going to be best if you could start with a couple of minutes of introduction about the area, about Northwest Spain, especially in contrast of other Spain wine regions, because I think Northwest Spain is one of the most upcoming regions in Israel, Bierzo and Galicia and Las Baixas and all this area. And I think it's going to be great to let the clients know a little bit more about this area of Spain.
Yes. Thank you. I think, yes, just a second. Yeah. I'm just going to speak for a couple of minutes just to introduce the winemakers before we start, because I think it's, well, they will do the speech in Spanish, English, and I will translate, as Daniel already said. And basically we take it from there. So so here we go. I'm Jürgen, as Daniel said, and working with all the commercial stuff here at the both domains at Raul Perez, Bodegas y Viñedos, and Forjas de Sanlez, and second project, Bodegas y Viñedos, Rodrigo Mendez. And thank you very, very much for having us to start with. It's a absolute pleasure, and this is very, very good for us because it's also, you know, first Zoom tasting of the year. It is for me, and it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of good energy ongoing here. So I'm not at the domain, or neither of the domains. I'm actually right now in Sweden, where I am from. So I've been here for some time now over Christmas, and about to go home if I can in a couple of weeks, back to Spain. We'll see what's going to happen, but anyway. So I think Daniel, please interrupt when you think it's enough.
I have just one thing that we have a question here. The client asks, in which glass you recommend to drink the wines? We have the sensory, but we will drink everything with that. But then, you know, you can recommend well for what.
Okay, you can have a look at my glass. It's this is not a great glass. I have another glass here. You know, it's not great either, but that's what I have where I am at my mom and dad's place here in Sweden. I mean, we obviously love glass manufacturers like.
Yeah, but kind of Burgundy glass, Bordeaux glass. Which glass will be the best?
If you're speaking Riedel, I'd say I go for white, the Riesling glass, and probably in some of Raul's wines, probably the Syrah glass, and in some wines the Burgundy glass.
All right, that's good.
If you go Salto, I would say Salto white. You know, the generic, not the generic, but the one for white. Yeah. And Bordeaux.
Exactly. All right. Then you can continue with the introduction.
Okay. I think we just get it like taste away and letting Raul and Rodri make their own introduction, and I try to translate. And
right.
Yep.
Hola,
Rodri,
Raul. Rodrigo.
Hola.
So, Jürgen, you can tell them they can make the introduction start. Maybe Rodrigo will start or Raul will start, whichever.
Perfect.
One of you.
Rodri, Raúl, si queréis empezar a hablar ahora, o sea, hacer la primera introducción, digamos.
No, que empiece Raúl ya.
Okay, no sé.
Vale, que empiece Raúl y luego tú y luego seguimos con los vinos blancos.
Vale.
No. ¿Primero los blancos o primero los tintos, Jürgen?
Sí, el orden de cata va a ser los blancos de Rodri y los tintos tuyos después. Pero si quieres hacer la introducción tuya primero, un poco.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Es un placer volver a veros otra vez. Bueno, hemos tenido suerte, estamos aquí hoy. Y nada, con muchas ganas de volver a estar juntos y de poder abrir botellas. Hoy vamos a catar 3 vinos, un poquito de 2 zonas, la zona de Bierzo y la zona de León. Y bueno, nada, agradecer mucho esta oportunidad que nos dais para compartir con vosotros los vinos.
Vale. Thank you very much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here again, to see you again. We met the last time nearly exactly a year ago in Hong Kong, and many things happened since then, obviously. But no, it's super nice to be here, and we're going to show you in Raul's case some wine from Bierzo and also from Castilla León, which is Bierzo, of course, but wine from de la Tierra de Castilla León. So another appellation further to the east.
Right. Can you tell us, I will just explain a little bit on Hebrew, אז יש לנו בעצם, מדברים שנייה אחת על האזורים שהם מגיעים מהם, צפון-מערב ספרד, אנחנו מדברים על שני הזנים העיקריים שאנחנו הולכים לטום כאן, על בריניו.
בריניו, ניתן מנסיה, עם קצת גם בסטרדו, בעצם טרוסו, מה שנקרא בז'ורה, שגם כי באמת שתול שם בקרמים, אבל באמת נתמקד בשני זנים המרכזיים, שני הזנים שאולי הכי מאפיינים, ובזכותם, אני חושב כיום יש היכרות, לפחות בארץ, אני פחות מתייחס בעולם, היכרות גבוהה ומעמיקה עם העיינות, ואני חושב שזה גם הולך לכיוון מאוד מאוד טוב.
All yours.
Sigue, Raúl.
¿Cómo?
Sigue.
Bueno, nada, que haga Rodri la introducción y luego hablamos de los vinos, ¿no? ¿O canto yo primero?
Sí. Habla un poquito ahora de tu proyecto, un poco la trayectoria, o sea, la historia, si quieres, un poquito incluso.
Bueno, son dos proyectos. El primer proyecto de la Vizcaína empieza en el 2011 y está basado en la expresión de diferentes zonas dentro del mismo pueblo. Zonas con diferentes perfiles de suelo y diferentes orientaciones.
Vale. We're going to taste first, together today, wines from a project that Raul started in 2011. First vintage is 2011 of the project of La Vizcaína, which is a project focused on the Valtuye Valley from different areas, different soils, different inclinations, different altitudes even, but all in the same area of the Valtuye Valley. The second name of the project is Lomas de Valtuye, which literally means different slopes of Valtuye.
El viñedo es muy viejo, prácticamente todo el viñedo está por encima de los 100 años. Entre 100 y 120 años, 90%. Excepto una pequeña parte de rapolado que tiene 45, 46, el resto son viñedos centenarios, siempre con mezcla de variedades locales.
I think now we have a problem because I think I am the front, not you, Raul. Hold on a second. There you are.
Okay, all is good with everything.
Okay.
We hear Raul and we hear you.
Okay, cool. Valtuye is an historic viticultural area, not only in Spain, but also in Europe, has a very, very important past and even a treasure, I'd say, where we have a Vielving, or a very, very old vineyards, where basically the average age would be 100 years old. Pretty much everything is planted from late 19th century until 1920.
That's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit, Jürgen, about the start of Raul when he started to make the wines, and a little bit from you, I know you know the history a little bit well. So just a few words about when Raul started, and then we can also move on to Rodrigo starting with the first wine, and then we can let Raul speak much more when he have, his wines as well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I don't know when Raul started to make wine, because Raul is 1 year older than me, so he's 73, not years, but born in 73, and the Raul was making wine since, you know, being a child, basically, with his family, with his father, in the same village of Altuye since then, wow. At the family domain by then. I think, Raul can maybe correct me later, but I think he's like first, like officially real vintage he's making as the responsible winemaker for the family domain is 96, maybe 95, Raul, 96, 97. And I have actually one of those wines here, which is from this case from 11. But his own project as independent and yeah, is 04 of the Ultreya project.
Amazing. All right then.
And so then if we just play fast forward for a little bit, we have 04, 05 of the Ultreya, and then from 2011, the La Vizcaína project, and other things that we will come back to and linked in with Rodrigo Mendez as well. As the history of Raul and the history of Rodri is very connected.
בעצם, אז אנחנו, I'll just say a few words in Hebrew. ראול, יש להם הרבה מאוד פרויקטים שהם בעצם מבצעים, הולך לצאת גם פרויקט חדש בקרוב, גם, שנותה עוד יותר גבוהים, הם חברים מאוד טובים, הם שותפים לחיים, הם כרגע הם לא ביחד באותו המקום, אבל רוב הפעמים שאנחנו פוגשים אותם או מדברים איתם, הם ככה יחד יושבים להם ונהנים ושותים את כל היין. זאת אומרת שאם יין מסוים לא הגיע מספיק ממנו, זה בגלל שהם שתו אותו בדרך כלל. אז אנחנו מיד גם נתחיל, נעבור ליינות הלבנים הראשונים שלנו, ואנחנו כבר נראה לכם מה אנחנו שותים. אז Jorgen, we can move on and speak a little bit with Rodrigo, and we will just put the first wine that we're going to taste, and then we can move on the tasting, and he can make all the introduction and everything together.
Perfect. So Raul, we're coming back to you in a little while, and Rodri?
Sí.
Rodri?
Sí, Jorgen.
Te toca hacer un poco de introducción y empezar ahora con el primer vino también. Pero si quieres, servir el primer vino y...
Vale.
Hacer la introducción.
Bueno, pues nada, muchas gracias al equipo de Bourbon Crown por darnos esta oportunidad de poder mostrar nuestros vinos a todos los presentes. Y nada, nosotros estamos muy contentos de estar hoy aquí también con vosotros y la idea es eso, explicar un poquito el proyecto y los vinos.
Thank you very much. Again, it's a pleasure to be here, obviously. And so, yeah, let's start to explain a little bit our project, domain, vineyards, and wines, starting with the first wine.
Forjas del Salnés es un proyecto que nace en el año 2005, aquí en Rías Baixas, en la subzona del Salnés, en concreto en el pueblo de Meaño. Es un proyecto que nació pues muy pequeño, prácticamente un proyecto de pueblo que hoy en día pues está un poquito más extendido a lo que es el Valle del Salnés.
Forjas del Salnés is a tiny project that started in 2005. That's the first vintage in the area of Salnés, which is a sub-appellation of Rías Baixas, very close to the Atlantic, with a big influences to the Atlantic Sea, and in the village of Meaño, which is literally the historic, most centric part of the valley of Salnés, and where people even believe that the first Albarino vines were planted, possibly coming from Germany, possibly not, as being a clone of Riesling, but that's a different story. Rodri, empezamos con el primer vino también, porque quieren...
Vale.
Sí.
Bueno, pues el primer vino es un Leirana Finca Genoveva. Es una parcela de 2,5 hectáreas aproximadamente, donde la mayoría del suelo es granito y ahí nos podemos encontrar pues la edad del viñedo, el 80% puede pasar de 200 años aproximadamente.
¿Quieres enseñar la botella? Porque como
sí.
Ellos no tienen la botella exacto.
No sé si se ve bien.
Si lo giras un poquito.
Se ve al revés, ¿no?
Yes. Sí.
Ahí está. Gracias, Daniel. Thank you.
With pleasure. It's you know, the guy behind the computer is doing here everything, you know, he knows. He's also speaking Spanish not bad, so, you know, he understands if you make a mistake.
Amazing. Rodri, tenemos que tener cuidado porque Daniel entiende el español. So, first wine is in the tasting, and we will come back, I insist, on that a little bit to the history of Rodrigo himself and also the project of Forjas de Sanlés. The first wine is the wine Finca Genoveva, Leirana Finca Genoveva, from 2018.
It's really salty. The mineral is really on front of it, and the saltiness, it's really there. It's amazing.
It's amazing expression for Rayas Baixas, because very, very salty, and people write to us that it smells like the sea. And I think this is one of the unique things that coming in Albariño from Rayas Baixas is that very high salinity, but I feel that with the Rodri style, it's coming out a little bit different, because he's more focused about the mineral components in the wine, less on the explosion of fruit or too fruity wine. But I think this is a very elegant, floral, salty, and I think the vineyard you can really feel the intensity of the vines, because the mid palate has an amazing concentration.
And you have so much length.
Yes, the length, and it's all coming a very sharp, elegant, and quite light body.
You translating that to Hebrew, or we continue?
No, you can continue that. We can afterwards say some words in Hebrew.
Okay. So the wine is not the it's not the original wine from the domain. It's a wine that came a little bit after. First vintage of this vineyard, because this is for us is a even a Grand Cru in our language, is 2009. It's called, well, we said it already, it's a Finca Genoveva, which is a historic vineyard in the valley of Saldes, further to the inland a little bit, but with pure granite soil, which is the common, like the common soil in Rías Baixas. It's granite with different depth of decomposed granite, sand. Sometimes it could be very, very like nearly beach sand, and sometimes it could be more like a sable, like in let's see, we're in France. If like a relation would be maybe like very west in the Loire Valley, for example.
So more like
Muscat.
The west side,
like
the Saumur-Champigny and this
Muscadet,
area, or more Muscadet area, really close to the ocean.
Exactly, more Muscadet than Saumur, I say. But there are calcareous soil here and there as well in the Rías Baixas terroir as well. But coming back to the wine, more important in this case is the tremendous age of the vineyards. We're talking about vines that are in between 175, 180, up to more than 200 years.
Wow.
Ungrafted, of course. So these are Pied Franco or Franc de Pied. And planted on this very, very, how to say, not very degraded or decomposed granite. It's like pure granitic soil with a topsoil of organic material that could be 10 centimeters or could be maybe 40 centimeters. But here, obviously, the roots are very, very deep down through the granite.
The intensity of the wine is really great. So can we'll have Rodrigo tell us a little bit about his working, the special area, because this area is very special. He's almost alone there without anybody interfering him.
Daniel is asking if you could tell a little bit about the viticulture. Si puedes hablar un poquito de la viticultura en esa parcela.
Sí, a ver, es una parcela histórica, como tú decías, y de 2,5 hectáreas al final pues estamos en un rendimiento de 4.000 kilos hectárea. Por la edad de los viñedos pues ya la producción de forma natural es bastante corta. Y entonces lo que intentamos es respetar la viticultura que se hacía en ese viñedo pues desde hace años. En el tema de la poda seguimos manteniendo pues la formación que tenían las cepas antiguamente, y no se trabaja el suelo porque las cepas hay mucha densidad de cepas en la viña y no podemos meter un tractor, tenemos que trabajar todo de forma manual y bueno, en los tratamientos pues también tenemos bastante sentido común.
So, as we already commented, it's a historic vineyard and a historic place because this vineyard is in something very unique in Rías Baixas, very unique in Spain even, and even in whole Europe. It's a very old domain with a total extension of vineyard of 2.5 hectares. In Rías Baixas, it's very, very difficult to find that. It hardly exists due to the heritage tradition, which is very similar to the heritage tradition in Burgundy. Through generations, the domain would be chopped up in smaller and smaller pieces and smaller vineyard even. But in this case, it has been in the same family that we know of for the moment for 6 generations. The work in the vineyard is about respecting the same kind of and making the same kind of viticulture that people here did 175 years ago, 100 years ago, 80 years ago, etc., etc. Like the very, very traditional, sometimes non-interventional, but being accurate, being on top, but very, very little, how to say, interference with the ripening cycle. With the, for example, in this case, we wouldn't do any green pruning. This is very, of course we prune and we decide by pruning more or less how big the yield will be. But from then, we just would leave the vineyard its own rhythm until harvest.
So basically what you hear is really, you know, the focusing of letting the vineyard really explode themselves, taking the greatest old vines, working very organically about everything. We would like to show, one second, also the map we are on.
We're starting
so a little bit about the area. So you can speak a bit about the area. And,
so I just wanted to show, first of all, the whole map of Spain wine regions. That way you can see that really is on the northwest corner, and afterwards Doe will show us. I have another map of a smaller map of northwest Spain, Bierzo and
but we can see every is there. Everything is on that area beyond the green, the yellow,
and of course the southern side, the southern southern part of Spain is much more hot, much more dry in its climate, less mountains than this area, than the northwest, than Rías Baixas. And Rías Baixas, of course, it's a region with much more rain, much more cooler temperature, longer harvest, longer vintages, and
the maturation is
exactly
longer.
And please show us the other map. That way, Jürgen, you can really tell us where exactly the wines of Vorrodri, where do they come from?
Sorry, say again.
We'll share another map that is more close. This was the old Spain map that everyone here with our clients can see. Where is it? And now it's more accurate to the area.
Now
so here is the Val do Salnes.
Fantastic. I wish I had a cursor as you, Daniel, so I can like really point into that Salnes sub-appellation and valley. But literally, you see where it says Ria de Orosa.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's one of the 5 fjords that Rías Baixas consists of. And so you have from the bottom, you have Ria de Minho, Ria de Vigo, Ria de Pontevedra, Ria de Arousa, La de Muros y Noia. All this is Rías Baixas area. That's where the name comes from, the lower fjords of Galicia.
And all of those vineyards are looking at the Atlantic Ocean. Those are the Valdosanes is the nearest vineyards to the Atlantic Ocean. Exactly, Dan. That's the thing. We say that Valdosanes that you see here in the middle, in the purple color, it's the subappellation of Rías Baixas with the most influence from the Atlantic Sea. You see that Ribeira do Ula, which is up here, but I don't show anything, but up in red color, it's further inland. If you go down, we have Sotomayor, which is the smallest subappellation in Rías Baixas, which is also inland, but just starts at the end of the Ria de Vigo, the Fjord of Vigo. We go further down to Orosal, which is obviously also on the border of the Atlantic, but also goes more inland, also warmer, very important. And then Condado Rotea, which is entirely inland, which is, you know, a lot warmer and obviously with less influence from the Atlantic. Well, so coming back to Condado Rotea. So coming back to Salnés is, or the Valdo Salnés, it's with margin, the subappellation of Rías Baixas with the most influence from the Atlantic. And to situate us, where are you just putting the arrow now, Dan, or Daniel? Is just a little bit south of that, we will find the vineyard of Finca Genoveva.
Okay, yeah, everybody can see that.
There you go. If you go now just inland from there, that will be exactly where the vineyard of Finca Genoveva is.
So I will just say a few things on Hebrew a little bit for everyone here. יכול להחזיר אותנו צהל. אז ראינו את המפות, אנחנו ממש יכולים לראות גם ביין להרגיש את זה, את המליחות הזאת שבאה מהאטלנטי, את ההשפעה הזאת, ואת המיקום המיוחד של רודריגו מנדז שם, יחד עם העבודת קרמיה מטורפת, ואני חושב שזה באמת אחד הדברים הכי מרגשים שיש. מדברים פה על גפנים בנות 200 שנה בערך, עם אדמת גרנית ממש מטורפת, על האטלנטי אנחנו מקבלים פה באמת לדעתי את הביצוע של, אבל מצד אחד אנחנו תמיד רואים מליחות וחדות. כאן יש לנו גם את היופי של הייננות שלו, בעצם כן המקום של העושר והריכוך הזה שבא מסביב, שזה היופי של היין הזה, שזה לא רק החדות חומצה גבוהה, אנחנו מקבלים פה יין עם מליחות מטריפה, שכל הזמן אתה רוצה עוד ממנו אחרי שאתה שותה, אבל אתה מקבל גם מעטפת כזאת היא מאוד יפה ועשירה, שזה האיחוד לדעתי.
נכון, וזה גם אחד הדברים שהכי פחות אולי מרגישים, שאולי, כן, אולי הכי פחות מרגישים באלבריניואים אחרים, שכמובן שמיובאים גם אלבריניואים פנטסטיים לארץ, אבל באמת יש הרבה שגם מרגישים את הפשטות שבו, מרגישים את החוסר איכות בעשייה, חוסר הקפדה על הדברים, על עבודת קרמים מאוד טובה, ובאמת הביטוי של האזור, כי כמו שאנחנו רואים, יש פה שני אנשים שהדבר היחידי שמעניין אותם זה לבטא את האזור שממנו הם באים, את הנקודה הספציפית, את הכרם של 200 שנה, ובאמת זה ניכר מאוד בעינות.
אז מבחינת כמויות יין, 45,000 בקבוקים בערך, רודריגו מנדז עושה, 75-80% זה לבנים, אדומים בפעם אחרת, שהם גם סופר מיוחדים, ונראה לי שאנחנו יכולים להמשיך עם הבריזה של האטלנטי ליין הבא. We will move, also thank you very much, Rodrigo, and Jorgen for the explanation about our first wine. So we will serve the second wine. We'll let everybody serve the second wine, and then you can continue a little bit saying about the domain, everything Rodrigo would like to say, and speak a little bit about our next wine.
Okay, just to finish before we move on to Salvora, just a very, very short explanation about Finca Genoveva while you're pouring the Salvora wine. Also, very important for us is to, as we talked about, work the vineyard in a super traditional way, original way. That also means that it's basically no treatments. because in the past people didn't have access to any kind of like modern chemical treatments. So we basically using, like in the past, sulfur for the vineyard to protect the vines here. And Rodri, ahora si quieres pasamos a Salvora y sigues hablando un poquito de tu proyecto y hablamos de Salvora. Y también vamos a hablar entonces un poquito de la técnica de hacer Salvora, que es exactamente igual como en el caso de Finca Genoveva.
Bueno, pues Salvora es un viñedo que para mí es también muy especial porque es el viñedo donde, bueno, está en la casa donde yo nací, de mis padres, un viñedo muy viejo. Los datos que tenemos es que en el 1920 estaba plantada, no sabemos cuántos años para atrás estaría, pero sí que en 1920 ya estaba plantada. Y es una finca pequeñita con un perfil de suelo ya diferente a Genoveva, o sea, es granito descompuesto con arena y algo de arcilla. Y aquí elaboramos 3 barricas de forma pues muy clásica. Antes no hablamos de elaboración, pero son vinos que se elaboran en barrica y van fermentados sin control de temperatura, sin ningún tipo de batonage ni de historia. Entonces un vino pues que yo creo que representa también bastante bien lo que se hacía aquí en el Salnés antiguamente, todos nuestros paisanos, hacer vinos pues, sin intervención.
So coming to the Salvora vineyard, it's another single vineyard or even a Grand Cru for us. We're moving here further to the west, closer to the Atlantic. In Finca Genoveva, we are about bird distance 10 kilometers from the Atlantic. In the case of Salvora, we are a kilometer, less than 1,000 meters down to the closest part of the Atlantic. This is also an historic vineyard, but not as old as Finca Genoveva. But it's a vineyard that's been in the property of the family for generations as well. And we know that it's more than 110 years old because in the family, 1920 is the year when it's like registered. So it was like grown-up vines, given that it's probably older, 125, 100, and maybe even older. But since 1920, it's been in the family with like making wine even of. The soil here is quite similar, but it's more sand than you find in the Finca Genoveva. It also has a little bit of clay, and in certain parts of this vineyard, we also have something that is very, very uncommon in the Aspicias, which is chalk or limestone. But again, the common soil type is granite.
Can you tell me a little bit, Jorgen, because we taste the same vintage, so a little bit about the 2018 vintage, and maybe, you know, a little bit about the affection of the vintages about the area, nothing, you know, too wide, but then about the 2018s, and then people will get the 19s, and what's the...
Okay, perfecto. Just before, I explain a little bit the winemaking, because the winemaking is very, very easy, very similar in all the 3 wines that we're tasting from here. It's literally the same kind of winemaking. And then I let Rodri explain a little bit more about the vintage 2018. Winemaking in all the 3 wines that we're tasting here is nearly exactly the same. It's harvest is decided. This is decided through, you know, the taste of the grapes, and also, of course, we analyze a little bit and see where we are in parameters. But it's always what's the determining factor is the taste, the intensity, the fruit taste of the Albarino that decides if tomorrow we're gonna harvest or not. Then from there, you know, from that very, very important decision, which is like crucial, like probably the most important decision in the winemaking of the year, is everything is very, 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 very easy. And that is direct press, and from the direct press immediately into the vessel. In Finca Genoveva, 2 foudres. In the case of Salvora, barrels. Both of the cases we use just the grape must without any additives. Sometimes it could be sulfur, but many times it's not. There's no temperature control. There's of course no added yeast, and so it's a spontaneous wild fermentation that takes as long as it needs. Could be 2 weeks, could be a month before the wine is completely dry. And from there, we would just leave the wine, not even rack the wine, and leave it just in the same vessel, in the foudres or in the barrels, to remain on the lees without any stirring until next year.
And until bottling?
Until bottling. Well, before bottling, we would move the wine into another vat and prepare it for with a natural stabilization before we bottle.
אז לשאלות ששאלו קודם כל מבחינת היעיננות, אנחנו מדברים פה על כליות כמה שפחות לגעת ביין, לוחצים את העינות בעצם, המיץ זורם פנימה, אנחנו במשך שבועיים עד שמגיעים די יובש מה שנקרא מלא, שהעינות יבשים, נכנסים מאז לתוך, בעצם מישהו שאל פה מה זה, זה בעצם חביות עץ מאוד גדולות, יכולות לנוע עד גדלים של
6,000 ליטר אם אני לא טועה בפודרה, וכבר ביצרנים אחרים כמו תיארי ג'רמז שם 2,000, אבל...
וכולי, ואז בעצם מה שאנחנו מדברים פה, הם גם לא עושים, זאת אומרת, אין פה עניין של בטונאז', הם לא מסובבים את היין, הם לא עושים שום דבר, היין פשוט יושב על המשקעים שלו בעצם, עד סורלי. לשאלה, כן.
כל העינות הלבנים יושבים סורלי, גם האדומים כמובן.
Back to you, Jorgen.
Exactly. I understood everything you said there. So, basically, the size or the format of the fermentation as aging vessel, if it's a foudre or if it's a barrel, it's due to the crop. While Finca Genoveva with Albarino, there's also red wine from Finca Genoveva. So the 2.5 hectare domain, if you coming back to the size of the domain, with Albarino is around 1.5, 1.3 even hectares. Normally, giving the fruit with around 40 hectoliters or 4,000 kilos per hectare, so around 6,000 kilos of grapes, giving the juice to fill up 2 foudres, one 2,000 and one 2,500 liter. And in the case of Salvora, which is a lot smaller vineyard, we're talking about 0.4, in between 0.3 and 0.4 hectare, it normally gives fruit enough to fill up 3 barrels. Now, we go back to Rodri to talk about a little bit of the vintage 2018. Rodri, añada 2018, un poco climatología y etc.
Bueno, 2018 en Rías Baixas es un año bastante equilibrado. Venimos de 17, que es un año súper caliente, 19 es un año mucho más fresco, pero sí que en 18 encontramos bastante equilibrio entre las condiciones climatológicas y fue una vendimia, sobre todo llegando el mes de septiembre, bastante calurosa también. Y sí que tuvimos unas lluvias un poquito antes en agosto que nos benefició para el equilibrio de la maduración y de la acidez. Y en concreto, yo creo que es de una de las añadas pues, más elegantes que podemos encontrar aquí en Rías Baixas en cuanto sobre todo a los vinos tintos, ¿no? En los blancos también, pero los tintos es una de las añadas más influyentes. Sobre todo en eso, en la finura de los vinos. Y en los blancos, pues, como te dije, es una añada bastante regular, que aquí a veces no es muy normal, pero sí que encontramos esa estabilidad que a veces necesitamos en vendimia y los meses antes de vendimia para conseguir el punto óptimo de maduración y de acidez en los vinos.
Bien. Just to add 5 seconds of more information from the past, or from what Rodri just said, when we talk about a warm or a cold or a fresh or a hot even harvest or vintage, I think one also have to have in mind that Rías Baixas doesn't follow the rest of Spain protocol for what is a warm or a fresh vintage, or for example Europe or the rest of Europe, going to Burgundy, going to Moselle, etc., etc. It's very, very, very different from the rest of the continent. Given that 2018, in many cases, in other areas of Spain to start with, was a perfect year, fresh year. Rías Baixas was a very warm year. It was much warmer than 2017, for example. That was, we came from 2017 as a vintage, which was a lot fresher, a lot cooler, a lot later, like longer ripening cycle and a later harvest. And 2018 was warm. It was earlier and it was very fast. It was a kind of vintage that was harvest that was very compact. In less than 2 weeks, we had all the harvest in the cellar. Yeah, it's also a vintage where we, in this, how to say, unexpected year, see some balance, I'd say. And where we're very happy with the vintage for the white wines, but it's more a year for us, a vintage for the red wines we make.
Yeah. Then
it's probably the perfect or the best vintage so far for the red wines, and for whites we would say it's a kind of average vintage.
Well, so with such an average vintage and such a wonderful wines, it's amazing to see. I mean, I can feel, if you spoke about the heat, so you have a little bit more dry extract that you really feel here in the Salvora.
Yes.
And it's really, you have like a lot of tannins, kind of, but with a lot of salinity as well. And I mean, the energy of these wines is amazing. The energy you have from them is really, really stunning, because sometimes, in these wines, you can feel something, it's kind of easy ones, but they are big, and huge complexity. The length is almost endless in the Salvora for me.
Yeah.
And it's really more wide. It's really going all over your palate. And it's, you have a lot of tannins and saltiness, which it can age, I think, also amazingly. And it has still a lot of freshness. So...
I have a question about the vineyards, because, of course, same vintage, different vineyard, different location, yet the Salvora is much more close to the ocean. Yet I do feel the wine has much more texture. I think it's more full body. I think it's riper. The fruit is a little bit more towards like melon and not like lime, apple in the Leirana. And I was just curious about the difference in the terroir, in the microclimate of the vineyards.
That's a question.
Yeah.
Perfect. Rodri, para que no conteste yo creo que es importante que tú hables ahora. Dan pregunta por el tema de la diferencia. Como hay tanta diferencia entre los dos vinos, la diferencia de terroir, la diferencia de suelo y climatología entre Salvora y Finca Genoveva. Thank you very much for the very nice words as well, Danny and Dan. It's amazing.
La diferencia es, es que el Finca Genoveva estamos a 20 kilómetros más o menos del mar, suelo de granito, es un suelo muy granítico, y lo que es Salvora estamos a 3 kilómetros del Atlántico, y es un suelo más arenoso, más granito descompuesto. Eso es un poco. Después también estamos hablando que Meaño, con respecto a la zona de Genoveva, de Baliñas, es una zona que hay una acidez, hay mayor acidez en los vinos, ¿no? Aquí en Meaño que en la zona de Baliñas. Son las condiciones que tenemos aquí en Meaño, son más frescas. El viñedo, por ejemplo, de Salvora, pues hasta las 11 de la mañana, 12 de la mañana, pues prácticamente no le da el sol. Entonces eso nos mantiene ese punto más de frescura que la zona de Genoveva, pues que está mucho más expuesta, ¿sabes?
Y la diferencia de corte podría ser una semana, o podría ser 2 días también en un año como 2018. Pero...
Depende porque en 2019, por ejemplo, Genoveva tuvimos que siempre la última finca en cortar y llevamos 2 años que es la primera. porque también en el año 2017 y así, con el estrés hídrico, la viña pues no nos aguantaba. Entonces, lo que sí es lo que te comento, Meaño es una zona más fresca, donde la acidez en los vinos está más presente en todo lo que es el pueblo de Meaño. Son vinos con más tensión.
Sí, totalmente. Muy bien. O sea, entramos ahora en temas más, quizás más técnicos, pero también mucho más interesantes a nivel de sensación de cómo son los vinos.
En finca Genoveva en añadas puedes ir a 13 tranquilamente de alcohol, 13,5 si te dejas ir, pero en Meaño 12,5, 12,8 pues ya es difícil pasar de ahí.
Sí, exactamente. Sí. Pues bien, a ver, básicamente la diferencia, o sea, la gran perdón, coming back to English, Rodrigo was saying 20 kilometers to the sea from where Finca Genoveva is, and 3 kilometers from the sea where Salvora is. But that is driving on a small drive. But bird distance is 10 kilometers and 1 kilometer respectively. And it's being more inland. Finca Genoveva is warmer. I wouldn't say it had less influence from the Atlantic, but obviously there is a bit more distance inland. But it's warmer, while Meaño, where the Salvora vineyard is situated, right in the heart, very close to the Atlantic, is fresher. Rodrigo was saying that, for example, that until 11 o'clock in the morning, even like depending on if we are in June, July, August, etc., September, like something in between 11 and 12 noon, the vineyard is still in the shadow.
Oh.
Giving that, like in false speaking here, we can have alcohol around 13 in the case of Finca Genoveva, and we would have 12.5 in the case of Salvora. Slower ripening, and the key thing would be that the acidic sensation is much more present in Salvora than in Finca Genoveva. Finca Genoveva, for me, offers many times a bit more gastronomic acidity, a bit rounder, while Salvora could be a bit more pungent. But that also depends on the year, because sometimes we have, exactly the same amount of acidity analytically wise, but the sensations could be like completely different.
Exactly. Okay, so I understand right, so I'll give some words on Hebrew. בעצם אנחנו מדברים פה על ההבדל במרחק לים. אני באופן אישי חושב פה על שני העינות האלה, שבעצם עצם זה שההבשלה היא הרבה יותר איטית בסלבורה, אז כאן ב-2018 נתנו לה ללכת עוד קצת בעצם, ואז להגיע למצב שהיא ממש מושלמת, גם מבחינת המורכבות של היין, גם מבחינת החומצה של היין, וגם מבחינת בעצם אנחנו רואים את היובש שלו, המטורף הזה, לעומת הלירנה שבטוח נבצר ככה, אתה יודע, הגפנים הסופר בוגרות האלה גם, בשנה כל כך חמה, נותנת לנו גם את הרעננות ואת הבציר המוקדם, כי עובדה שכאן אנחנו מדברים על אותו אחוז אלכוהול, הוא מדבר על הפרש של 0.5% לרוב בשנים, כאן שיש לנו בדיוק את אותו אחוז, אנחנו מבינים שאת הסלבורה המשיכו קצת כדי לתת להבשלה הזאת להגיע, שהיה אפשר קצת יותר למשוך את זה אפילו בשנה כזאת. אנחנו נעבור איתם ואני אגיד על היין השלישי, זאת אומרת, אם יש לכם איזה שאלות עוד על שני העינות האלה שהיו את 2018, והיה כאן ממש קטע שרצינו להראות את ההבדלים, שגם שם באזור כזה, במרחק לא גדול אחד מהשני, אנחנו רואים כאלה הבדלים ב-80 שנה כמעט בגיל הגפנים, הבדלים קצת בקרקעות, בקרבה לאוקיינוס, ועוד פעם קצת ככה כדי להבין את תת-אזור, להיכנס ממש פנימה, ולא רק לתת משהו כללי, אלא כן, בוא נכיר את אלבריניו ואת רודריגו מנדז, אבל גם מיידית את אותו בציר, שני עינות שהם גדולים שלו, ולראות באמת את ההבדלים שיכולים לראות, ואת מה שנקרא את הדברים הקטנים ביניהם. So, Jorgen, we can move on to the third wine, and going completely different wise to another vintage, much more mature, and a very, very special wine, and the wine that is connecting really between you know, the last wine we will taste from Rodrigo, but it's making Rodrigo and Raul together. So, I mean, he can, we give him a step in.
Perfect. That's beautiful. I was just glancing through the questions that popped up here in the chat room, and I'm impressed by your multitasking, because you answer questions while you while you speak, and also listening. Great. Yes, Maria Luisa Lázaro is the perfect link, and also history about the connection between Raul and Rodri. But coming back to, I think, giving back the word to Rodri to talk about that a little bit. Rodri, si quieres hablar un poquito, aparte de vino María Luisa Lázaro 2013, que no es la primera añada de este vino, pero también un poco, o sea, la conexión con Raúl, cómo empezó todo, y luego llegar a hablar del vino.
And we have, wait one second, Jürgen, we have two questions that people still are asking before we move to the third wine. So speaking about a little bit the effect of the winds from the Atlantic Ocean, which means that for me, probably it gives the freshness, the saltiness, and all that. And the second thing that it's really the question here, we can see that Doug here can give us the picture of the vineyards of Rodrigo Mendez, which are simply different than we usually see, and to tell us a little bit about this kind of growing, what it gives, what is this kind of
pergola system, exactly, yeah. And the benefits, or maybe why specifically Sukkah Chevronit in Hebrew, exactly. And maybe you can tell us if this is maybe the Finca Genoveva?
It is the Finca Genoveva, yes.
Right. So this is a 200-year-old vine. Now there's some flowers and cabbage on the side.
But yeah. Can you tell us about this special growing?
You mean the kind of trellis?
Yes, exactly, trellis.
¿Quieres que lo haga yo muy rápidamente, Rodrigo, un poco de cómo es la viticultura en Rías Baixas?
Sí, dale tú.
Porque el tiempo pasa. Es como, vamos, bueno, el típico de, o sea, the kind of trellis system in Rías Baixas is in Galician, Spanish is emparado. And there's no real translation for that, but in English we would say pergola. Yeah. And it's a typical historic viticulture trellis, where vines are tended, not always very high, so you can walk underneath. Could also be a lot lower, but always, you know, maintaining the canopy or bringing the vine up and creating a canopy which is a shield, like a roof. And extending the canopy possibilities flat. So in Rías Baixas, you wouldn't find any very steep vineyard. You would find sometimes a little bit inclinated, but in general, very, very, very flat land.
Yeah.
What happens here is that being not a cold nor a warm area, but fresh, with Atlantic influence, it's a mild area, but also with problems, so to say, in terms of maturity. For example, in the red varieties, it's very, very difficult to mature them or to ripen them to the perfect phenolic ripeness. In terms of Albarino, less, it's easier, but still we need a good insulation. We need a good canopy in order to ripen the vines. So historically, not always and not necessarily, this has been the kind of trellis. But also this is a trellis used in a historic area as Rías Baixas, where plots are very small. If the heritage tradition, as we talked about before, is making that the plots are smaller and smaller and smaller, each owner, each grower is very important. If you only live on maybe let's say 2,000 square meters or even less, that you take advantage of what you have. So you would even have other kinds of crop underneath the vines. You would cultivate potatoes, lettuce, tomatoes, etc., etc. It is in the same very vineyard. You can still see that in Rias Baixas in some areas. Not much these days, as now everything is very, very much into viticulture and the potatoes are somewhere else. But traditionally, people use the same vineyard or the same land to have vines, and underneath other kinds of crop for food. We also see, sorry?
No, please, go on.
We also see in Rias Baixas that sometimes this trellis system is not the most adequate. It's not the perfect one. Many people think it's only due to the enormous humidity that people used to train the vines like this, because the humidity in Rias Baixas is massive. It's all year, and it's creating a lot of problems with mildew, with botrytis even, so a lot of people also think that this is about how you defeat that, how you make it the airing of the vineyard easier, having the crop high up and letting the air flow through the vineyard. But we also see, and in the case of Forjas SNS, we also have some experimental vineyards where with hyper intensive, like in Guyot and trellis, with 7,000 vines per hectare in a hyper intensive plantation, possibly giving even better fruit.
That's nice. Thank you very much for that everyone can really understand a bit more about that. And it's a really question from our crowd. So, it's a great...
I have another question, I'm sorry, about the malolactic fermentation. Are the wines going through full malolactic fermentation?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. We aim to not. And because we prefer the wines to not have any malolactic fermentation, but we couldn't say that it's 100% guaranteed. But what's key thing here, and where probably Raul will talk more about that later, is that we tend to harvest quite late in Forjas SNS. And the idea behind that is to lower the malic acidity in the grapes. In that case, or like that, avoiding in a natural way, instead of blocking it with sulfur, in a natural way, avoiding the malolactic fermentation.
Amazing.
And that is, we like to preserve the natural acidity high.
Yeah.
So we don't correct anything. And that's also what I talked a little bit before. It sounds weird maybe, but what I call the gastronomic acidity. It's not that green, strong, tart. It's high, but it's drinkable.
Yeah.
All right, so we can move on to the third wine, to the really special wines made only twice, 2005, 2013.
Aged 5 years before, and I think...
De Lerana Maria Luisa Lazaro. Yeah, 2013.
Venga, Rodri.
Bueno, pues María Luisa Lázaro es un vino que, bueno, como sabéis, Raúl está presente en todos estos vinos desde el principio. Si yo estoy haciendo vinos gracias a él, y este vino en concreto en el año 2005 fue la primera añada. Solo se hicieron dos, 2005 y 2013. Y como os decía, Raúl está presente en todos los vinos, pero en este, pues él fue después de 9 años de estar el vino en un depósito, porque no pertenece a ninguna parcela. Este era el vino joven de la bodega, el Leirana 2005, que no llegó a salir porque estaba con una acidez muy alta, y yo siempre resalto el valor que tuvo Raúl en apostar después de 9 años en embotellar este vino. Fue una apuesta de él, donde, bueno, yo siempre lo apoyo en todas las decisiones, pero aquí, pues bueno, a mí al principio me sorprendía, y al final la añada 2005 salió después de 9 años al mercado, y las botellas pues que se abren hoy en día están perfectamente bien equilibradas y con muy buena evolución. Después, en el año 2013, que es una añada aquí en Rías Baixas, para mí de las más complicadas y más difíciles, en concreto, de todos mis vinos son los que menos me gustan esta añada, excepto este, el Luisa Lázaro, que que creo que es un vino que está dando la cara también después de estar un año en fudre y un año en inoxidable, en crianza. Se pasó a botella y salió al mercado de allí a 5 o 6 años. Entonces, aquí no hablamos de ninguna parcela en concreto, son depósitos que se quedan con una acidez que, bueno, a la hora de catarlo a Raúl es el que decide, cuando le gusta una añada con este perfil, pues se decide embotellarlo y yo creo que de forma acertada el vino pues está dando la cara. Es un poco también la forma de mostrar que el albariño pues puede ser, aparte de ser un vino joven, puedes elaborar vinos de crianza en barricas, en fudres o en inoxidable, y que son vinos, si tienen una acidez buena y de forma natural, son vinos para aguantar muchos años en el tiempo. O sea que yo creo que estando Raúl aquí también puede hablar bastante de este vino, porque aunque está presente en todos los vinos, yo creo que este fue una apuesta de él muy, muy interesante, que revolucionó un poco aquí el sector.
A ver, ¿cómo traduzco todo esto?
Dale.
I'm saying that, okay, maybe Daniel, I need your help now to translate, because I don't think I will remember it all, because it's kind of long and it's also kind of...
We'll tell Rodrigo to do it easy back.
Important here. Yeah. Starting with Maria Luisa Lázaro is a wine that until now being produced, well, bottled and released in 2 vintages, 2005 and 2013. There is more wine, but it's not, you know, it's not ready yet, or other vintage, but it's not released yet. 2005 is a very important year because it's the first vintage of Forjas de Sanés. It's also the year where Raul and Rodri started to work together. That's another story. We can talk about that maybe a little bit later, because I think we need to move on in time here and let Raul also talk about his project and wines. But 2005 is the first year, and so to say the year of foundation of Forjas de Sanés. It's the year where Raul is coming to Forjas de Sanés to make wine together with Rodri and start up the project. It's a year also where the white wine, Leirana, the generic wine from the winery, is not released. The first vintage is not released. So this wine, only red wines from 2005 were released afterwards. So 2005 is a vintage kept in stainless steel tanks. To tell is that Maria Luisa Lázaro is not a single vineyard wine. It's not a Grand Cru wine. It's could be anything from the generic. Say again?
Yeah. Okay. It's the grandma name, first of all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's Rodri's grandmother, Maria Luisa Lázaro. And so it's like a homage to her. This label, first vintage 2005, was kept a little bit by accident for 9 years in the vat before it was bottled and released. We released 2005. In 2014 it was bottled. I think Rodri, sacamos todo. Sí, 14, ¿no? Pero salió a la venta a principios de 2015, ¿puede ser?
Sí, sí.
Sí, por ahí.
And then the 2013 was bottled. When it was bottled?
Okay, multitasking here. Raul, Dani?
No, the wine arrives in the moment, in 2005, that the people in Rías Baixas is looking for the wines with the malolactic fermentation. In this moment, the local wines are very sweet. When I looked at 2005, I think it's possible to change the profile. It's very interesting to white with this wine for the next blend in the next vintage. At the end of the 4 or 5 years, only have I don't remember 1,000 liters and I decided to put in the bottle and look the evolution. It's for this that the wine is not shining in the bottle.
Wow,
yeah.
And I think that the style of the Luisa Lázaro 2005 reflects the new tendency in the area. When you testing the albariños in this time, the more important part is the acidity. And for me, this wine was the pioneer.
And then for the 2013, how long time was the Elvage for the 2013?
13 was a very similar vintage. No, it's 5 was very cool and very acid wines, but 13 is cool. It's cool. And it's for this that I decided to put this wine in the bottle. And I think that 18 will be the next vintage. 13, 18.
Yeah.
18, 18.
Because, and here you really have the acidity is striking, yeah. And then you have, wow, huge mouthfeel. And it's...
I think that's the idea of these wines. Actually, it's a plot. In 2005, there are not a singular plot, but actually, Luisa Lázaro is a single plot. But always is looking the very cool vintage with a very high continuing acidity. In this wine, they're not important the ages in barrel. It's more important the body, the acid body.
And it's really a bodied wine. Yeah. I mean, you feel it amazingly.
It's a big, fresh, very complex. You feel it's kind of moving between I'm a big wine to I'm a so fresh wine, and the acidity, the acidity just puts the power on the saliva button, and it just keeps coming back, and the finish is like a never-ending finish. And I think you said it right. I think I probably didn't taste nothing at those years, 2005. Yet I do understand why you're saying that this wine is like a benchmark in Raias Baixas for this style, for the more acidic, more fresh, more mineral, not malolactic, not oak-driven wines, and you feel it's a benchmark wine. We just
but it like change, and you see that for the change. What you mean is the change of the change in Raias Baixas for the wines that are not the big oak, the big malo, and everything, but can keep amazing with this kind of style.
It's like the proof that you don't need to do that to make
amazing
wine.
And really so nice to taste the last one and have, you know, a little bit more aged. Of course, it's different winemaking. It's different time in the barrels, much more time than the first one we have tasted. But then to see how these wines can age amazingly. I mean, you know, sometimes people hear, and I will say just some things in Hebrew, but you know, they don't think about these wines as how great they are and how good they can age. ובעיקר אנחנו יכולים לדבר על זה שהמחיר הרבה פעמים, אנחנו חושבים אותו ווואלה, הוא כאילו נראה נמוך יחסית ליין שיכול להתיישן פשוט מדהים. וזה פשוט יינות שהם פשוט הצגה. זה לא מה שאנחנו רגילים לראות גם מהאזורים האלה, וגם אם זה השינוי שהוא מדבר פה על היין הזה, שב-2005, הוא מדבר על זה בציר 2013, אבל 2005, שעשה את השינוי הגדול לעבור ליינות הרבה יותר טרואר דריבן בשבילי, זאת אומרת, יינות שמבטאים את הטרואר שלהם, ולא רק את העיננות, הגודל, מה שגם אהבו בעולם, זאת אומרת, זה שב-2005 זה יצא כאן ברייס ביישס, אבל גם בבורגון זה היה ככה, וגם בהרבה אזורים אחרים, המקום הזה של החביות ושל המלו ושל העץ הגדול, והרבה יותר להביא כאן את התואר של הענב הזה והיכולות שלו שם, ועם 2005 הוא היה באמת אולי החלוץ באזור הזה. עדיין פה אנחנו מדברים עם שני חלוצים מטורפים, שזה, הם פשוט, מה שהם עושים זה...
זה לא יאמן וזה לא שווה... זה פשוט לא שווה ערך לשום דבר אחר שנעשה באזור הזה, זה באמת משהו קיצוני, משהו אחר ונורא ייחודי, ואני חושב שמשהו מעניין על היין הספציפי הזה, זה שאני מזגתי אותו לכוס, אני חושב שהיה איזשהו, משהו אפילו קצת...
ריזלינגי כמעט, פטרולי נגיעה, ואז הוא מאוד התחדד.
והיין פשוט השתנה לגמרי בכוס, היין התחדד, התפקס, ואני חושב שזה אחד הדברים שהכי מראים כמה יין יכול להתיישן, זה מהרגע שאתה פותח אותו, לא משנה, זמן קצוב, שעה, שעתיים, אבל באמת ההתפתחות ולראות איך דווקא ממשהו גדול עם גוף ומשקל, הופך למשהו חד, רענן, מינרלי, שבאמת זה רק מראה כמה הוא יהיה כזה בעתיד ברגע ש...
So we spoke a little bit about the idea that when we opened the wine, it almost had a little bit like almost a bit touch of patrol in the nose and a lot of, you know, it felt a bit more aged. And then as much as we give it more time in the glass, it's only getting more sharp. And it's one of the things about aged wines that when you open it, it's amazing how it feels more aged in its start.
Yeah.
And then it becomes more fresh and fresh and fresh. And then, you know, the future is great for this wine as well.
You're nailing it here. It's exactly that. And like Raul said, and also Rodri said in the beginning, this is the wine that showed really years after, you know, the potential of aging for Albarino.
Exactly. Would you like, Rodri, first of all, muchas gracias for the 3 wines.
Yes.
And having you here with us. It's really, really amazing for us.
It's an honor.
We are huge fans, you know. We came last year in Hong Kong, and in 1 minute we became huge fans of both of these winemakers.
We've tasted it for the first time in Hong Kong.
Yeah, it was...
And it was incredible.
We could wait. Yeah. We just waited, and when the wines will arrive, when they will arrive.
That the neighbor tables were, you know, the producer we drink on a daily basis from Burgundy. So it was amazing that you suddenly stop at Albarino and Caino and Mentilla and all of those race varieties just next to Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, the most common grape varieties probably in the world.
And go back, and go back, and go back, and go back, and go back to these wines again and again.
Wow.
So
Thank you.
Bringing here, I hope very soon in Spain, but I mean, it's great. So maybe if you have to add anything to what we said, then we can move on to the reds. Yeah.
We can move on.
We can move on to reds.
Thank you.
Fine. Yeah?
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really, really great show of whites, stunning wines, and know why we love so much our Spanish partners. Okay. So, Raul, maybe you would like to say a few words about you, about, you know, I see you now, it's like you went very young now with this small beard, you know, we met you in Hong Kong, you know.
Almost a meter long beard, but now you're 20 centimeters maybe beard, but 20 years younger, huh?
After Hong Kong, I have the coronavirus, and when I go to the hospital, I have problems with my respiration, and it's necessary to put the pipes, and the doctor said, no, it's possible, the beard. And I said, you decided, but
I'll take life over the beard.
This is 2 years or more, and no problem. In the future, it's probably.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're on the way.
It's a lucky state today here, because when I was to the hospital in Spain, there are not the people don't know nothing of coronavirus. It was a very difficult moment, and for me, it's a lucky today.
And we are lucky that you are still with us, and we don't want to know you for such a short time. So, you know, in the worst case, we would bring you here. and take care.
We will take care of you here, no problem.
But it's really great to host you here with us. And I know you are even came now from Rioja and not from your homeland.
I blend the wines to Rioja today. I have in the bottle 80, and the next week I'm going to bottle 19. Oh. It's Tempranillo, a little part of Graciano. It's nice. Very small, very small.
Very
today,
nice.
I have three rare wines. 2017 was a very difficult vintage in Spain because it's very dry. The harvest was around 25 days before the normal vintage. Jürgen,
dime.
¿Traduces tú o hablo en inglés?
Yo creo que lo estás haciendo de puta madre. Si quieres seguir en inglés y si cualquier cosa me dices.
You run with us, Raul. We don't now. You cannot get out of it. You know, Jürgen was struggling here. He made amazing work with Rodrigo, and we need you. You know, you can be with us, and if we need Jürgen to help, he will help us.
I'm here.
I will just show which wines we are drinking. I would say to the client that I would recommend these two wines go one by each other, but we will start with the La Puolosa, and we will move afterward. We will move to the El Rapolao. But I would suggest that even not if together. So keep some wine that you can see the difference between what Raul will explain you now.
It's the Puolosa. The Puolosa is a blend of the three different plots. I think that 17 was best vintage for the Puolosa because the Puolosa is very dry soil. It's a very compact clay. Generalmente la Puolosa have more level alcohol. Generalmente, the wines of La Vizcaína is 100% with stamps, but 17, I think that's is best have only 70-75% of stamp because the level of alcohol is more higher than the normal vintage. And when you have a high level of alcohol and you have 100% of the stamps, it's probably that you have a bitter sensation in the wines. And it's for this that in this vintage, only have a little part of stamps.
So in 17, so there's not a lot of
No, there is a lot. There is not 100.
Not 100% stamps. Okay.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit of your method, a little bit about the vinification and your
the vinification is very simple. Generally, I prefer to have a very early harvest. I prefer to have around 11.5, 12.5 alcohol than 40 or 50. But 17 is very difficult because the harvest was, generally the harvest is the second week of September, and the harvest in 17 is second week of August. And was very difficult to have a down level of alcohol because was short time between the harvest with con el embero. No sé la palabra embero.
Variation.
Hubo un tiempo muy corto entre el embero y la vendimia. No pudimos vendimiar muy rápido.
Raul is saying that it was a very short time in between the variation and harvest.
It's for this. Generally, the skin contact is longer. It's around 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. But 17, I prefer short times. Around 45 days, 50 days is no more.
Yeah.
After this time, crush the grapes. The wines, every wine in the project fermented in oak tanks and aged in tank and barrel. Generally, 5-6 months in the oak tank, big oak tank, 5-6 months in barrel. Never racking, no batonnage, never batonnage. Every time between the end of the fermentation, malolactic fermentation, and the time that the wine is out the barrels, this time, around 10-12 months, the wines, it's without sulfites.
Mm-hmm.
No put sulfites in the aged in barrel.
Yeah.
I have a question about the barrels.
But I have a question about the variety.
About the
Little
variety.
bit, can you tell us a little bit about Mencia? A little bit about the variety and the style of this, the variety. And the area, a little bit of Bierzo, maybe.
Every wine is a blend of the different grapes. Around 90-95% is wet, and 5-10% is white, depending the production in each vintage. In the red grapes, the big part is Mencia, but always there are a little part of Trousseau and a little part of Alicante Boucher. And in the white grapes, generally there are a blend, Palomino, and Godello, and Dona Blanca. This is the historic concept in the vineyards. Every vineyard is a blend. Only in 17 of Rapolao is 100% Mencia, and it's a young vineyard, only 45 years old. But actually, 18, 19, 20, Rapolao have a blend of 3 different plots. This plot and 2 new plots, very old. I buy this plots in 18.
Wow.
The barrels for the aged is 6 months in 3,000 liters and 5-6 months in 500 liters. They are not new barrels. It's 4 or 5 years old.
I will speak a little bit in Hebrew to tell the clients. So, אז ראול, מה שראול בעצם מדבר עליו באופן כללי, אנחנו מדברים פה על יעיננות שבאופן רגיל עם 100% אשכולות שלמים, אין הפרדה. בבציר 17 ספציפית, בגלל שיש לנו פה בציר יותר חם, אז הוא עשה רק 70-75%. אנחנו מדברים על התיישנות בחביות ישנות מאוד גדולות, ואז עוד קצת בחביות גם גדולות, זאת אומרת, אנחנו לא מדברים פה על ברגים קטנים, ושום חביות
מדברים על עץ חדש כמובן, הכל עץ ישן,
הכל עץ ישן. זנים, אנחנו מדברים פה על רוב המוחלט הוא מנסיה, ואחריו אנחנו מדברים פה קצת על טרוסו, ועל
גרנש של טינטוררה, שזה סוג של גרנש, אליקנטה בושה.
בדיוק. אז עכשיו אנחנו מדברים על יעיננות סופר מיוחדת, גם די פורצת דרך, לטעמי חיבור מאוד גדול לאזור של בורגון, לאזור של רון הרבה פעמים.
אני חושב שהעבודה פה עם חמצן, זה הטריק של היין, באמת מישהו הזכיר קצת VA, אבל זה באמת העבודה עם החמצן שמצליחה כלומר, ה-VA כן לוקח פה לאיזשהו מקום שהוא דווקא יותר פלורלי, מטובל, ולא למקום של החומץ. וכן, VA זה איזשהו משחק מאוד מאוד מסובך, אני חושב, שאפשר לטעות בו.
שרק גאונים גדולים יכולים לשחק אותו מדהים, וראול פארז משחק אותו פשוט כמו פנומן, זה עיננות מלאה בביטחון, כמו שאתם רואים את הבן אדם והכל, וסיפר לנו גם על מזל שהוא פה איתנו, כי הוא באמת היה חולה בקורונה ממש ממש בהתחלה, והוריד את הזקן עקב החיבור לכל המכונות הנשמה, לצינורות, להכל, זה עבר תקופה שהייתה מאוד מאוד, כולם פה דאגו מאוד, והייתה מאוד מטריד לראות אותו ככה. ואנחנו מאוד שמחים שהגאון הזה פה איתנו, ודרך אגב, הוא להגיד, אבל דיקנטר בשנת 2019 הכריזו עליו אולי כעינן הטוב ביותר בעולם, ואיחוד הדברים שהוא עושה זה פשוט מדהים, ולראות את העינות האלה, שבדרך כלל אנחנו מקבלים אותם בבורגון, ואזורים אחרים באמת במחירים אסטרונומיים, כאן איתנו, היא בדברים שהם יחסית באמת נגישים.
זה לא יחסית, אני חושב שזה value, זה אולי מהעינות הכי value שכיום אפשר למצוא בעולם, מבחינת מחיר, מורכבות, יכולת אישון,
תמורה מדהימה. זהו. פשוט תמורה מדהימה, אני אומר לו תמיד שהוא צריך להעלות את המחיר ביקב, כי התמורה פשוט היא לא הגיונית, אבל זהו. So Raul, I just said that I think your wines are maybe the world Red's best value for money, and you can feel some really great stuff, which from another regions, you know, when we put it blind, sometimes I love to put your wines blind, and all the wines I like to put blind, but here to see the reaction and what people are thinking about those wines, and that it's really your work with so much confidence and so much knowledge with the grapes is something that not anyone could do, because there was a question here about the game with some volatile acids.
The difference between the two parcels, the Rapolao and Paulosa, is very opposite concept in the products. The Rapolao is north face, it's pretty cool parcel. Here the soil is clay, but generally have a very high content in organic material. It's more dark. La Paulosa is warm. The orientation is to the east. Have more number of hours of sun. Here the soil is more compact and is clay compact. And in the top part, generally have a limestone. And generally the difference in the moment of the harvest between La Paulosa and Rapolao is La Paulosa is 15 days before that the Rapolao.
Wow.
But it really 17 no is a normal vintage, because the time of the harvest only was 3 days, because in the first time of August, temperature is very higher. They are not cool in the ninth, and the harvest was very early, and no is possible to wait for the cool plots. It's the vintage that you cannot see the real difference. Generally, Rapolao is more fruity, but in 17, Paulosa is more fruity. It's very complicated vintage in Valtuille 17. It's very complicated.
And it's really, yeah, I can understand, you know, I mean, it's not the regular freshness that we have and the regular acidity and tension, but here, for me, it's the wine will also build amazing. I mean, they are for aging, and they are, I mean, the maturity, and also it's a bit more bitter, right? For you see the hot vintage, but to fight with this vintage, it's amazing, and bringing this.
But I agree with Raul about the La Paulosa. I think the La Paulosa is really a much more fruity, easygoing wine, and the El Rapolao, it's suddenly you get that a little bit more length, a little bit more harmony on the palate, and you really see the El Rapolao will age marvelous, and La Paulosa, I think it's amazingly now.
Generally, the Rapolao is a more beautiful wine in the project. But it really that in 17, Paulosa is more expressive.
And here today, I mean, I feel like a bit more like in the El Rapolao, you really feel more the full bunches. I mean, the whole bunches are really in front here in 2017.
In every wines of La Vizcaína, it's all vintage, but in 17.5 all vintage, 25 is the Crapé, is
right. Yes.
These stamps.
Yeah.
It's only because it's very warm, it's very hot vintage, and I think it's best no 100%. But always every vintage is all vintage 100% with the stamps.
Yeah. So the terroir in El Rapolao is more cooler, and where is the exposition is to where facing?
The exposition is north, is the more cool parcels in Valtuille. The soil has a more quantity of organic material, and generally have more humidity. La Paulosa is compact clay, compact argile. The argile have a very good retention of water, but no put the water to the plant. Have a very good retention, but it's more difficult that the plant take the water. Is more lighter, the altitude. The Rapolao is around 600 meters to the sea. And La Paulosa is 530 of altitude. And the climatology in the water in this area is Atlantic option, would have a little part of continental. Really, the Atlantic conditions is in Real Baixas. It's in the northwest of Spain, and the wind is to the west. And this wind generally is very humidity. It's for this that Bierzo is is the area in Spain with the fresh wines.
And wow, that's really the two wines, you know, to have them both one beside each other.
I think the thinking of taking Spain as a not a white, but a hot climate country, and then planting vineyard, of course, buying or just making wine out of vineyards that are facing north is, I think, what people think today about like the change in climate, because once you get a south-facing vineyard, the maturity is much more faster, and the acidity probably will go down higher.
That the problem is the climatology is changed, but it's changed the form of work the plants. In the past, the people, the production is more higher, and the maturity is more difficult. And the people produce big wines with 11.5, 12, and actually the people work more the plants. And generally, when the people think in the quality wines, is looking to the small production in the plants. And this condition make wines with a more higher alcohol, more concentration. Spain actually is more dry and is more warm. It's probably that we need to change the viticulture because the conditions are changing all the time in this time. And it's for this that it's very difficult in Spain at this moment make wines with low alcohol and high acidity. But when you look the all Riojas, 17, 16, and you look the levels, the level of alcohol is 11.5, 12. It's very good wines for drinking this moment. I think that the people is looking the maturation, and I think that is the opposite. I looking make wines around 12, 12.5, 11.5. Well, it's my concept. I know that is the solution, but my idea in this moment is produce wines with a more small level of alcohol.
Well, but it's obviously, I see here that you really know how to make a very, very good wines also with a little bit higher.
13% alcohol,
you have the
you're doing
vintage.
pretty well, huh?
You couldn't find the vintage, but you know, I must tell you something. When I smell the really in the Puolosa, it's really, you feel also it's more easygoing. Okay, it's more pleasant. It's everything goes like that in 17, which usually probably it's the opposite. But then in the Rapolao, for me, you feel a lot of tension in the wine. And for me, the first smell went a little bit like I have from Bizot in hot vintage.
But
you know, this kind of pitangé, pitang, this kind of fruit, like the small one that always remind in a hot vintage, great full bunches wine, which usually cost, I don't know how much, hundreds of euros in the market. And it's really the smell, and it's phenomenal.
Something we've talked about it a couple of times while drinking your wines, and that you
also
always
the minerality is great on the palate, which you keep it on the tongue, and it goes very mineral. You have here the complexity, the shoulders, the mass from the vintage, but still all the freshness, and you can really, really feel that it's coming from an area that it's cool with the work that is phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but it's really great to taste your wines one next to each other, because you don't feel mercy for us in the amount of different wines. So putting them one next to each other is really, really nice, and to feel this great, the difference between.
Exactly, from the same series.
And the expositions.
Different expositions.
It's amazing. I mean, the same like we had in the 18s, the first 18s with the Salvora and the Leirana Genoveva. So, I mean, here, even in a more microclimate, one microclimate and two facing east, facing north, and seeing the difference of the altitude, and really a very Burgundian kind of philosophy.
I agree. I think this is the best way to enter a wine region, or to understand the different microclimates or the different styles of wine in the region, is to take the vineyard and look what's the exposure here, what's the vineyard, what's the soil components here, and just to make a contrast, yeah, between
the comparison.
Yeah, to compare between the two, and that's why you just get a much bigger understanding about the winemaker, about the vineyard, about the area, about the grape variety, about just everything.
And which one to open and which one to age.
Yeah, which one would be great in 10 years, yeah.
So, and wow. That's really, really an amazing, really, really, really amazing wines. And we're going to do about the same with here as we did before, with more older wine, but coming from different place. Yeah, but then...
And different grape variety, of course.
So can you tell us a bit, Raul, about your way of thinking, and how can you make the wines still have, you spoke about making wine in 11.5, 12%. How are you going to do that with still keeping the maturity and have a full maturity, the full maturity for the wines, and not having 11.5, 12% wines with under ripeness?
Yeah, with green tannins and green stems and everything. Yeah.
Okay, testing rara avis.
Yeah, but before the rara avis, my question is how? Okay, yeah, you're gonna answer it.
And Jürgen.
Dime.
My question is how to make really great ripeness, full ripeness maturity in 11.5, 12% alcohol in this area, which here we see it in 13.5, which I understand it's 2017. But then how you work the vines so good to have the fully phenolic maturity with a really low alcohol percentage?
Yeah, very, very good question.
You can translate it to Spanish, that it will be.
I don't know.
¿Puedes traducir la pregunta, Jorge?
Sí, no, la pregunta es súper buena porque pregunta, ¿cómo puedes llegar a hacer vinos en un año tan cálido y seco como 2017 con maduración fenólica perfecta, pero que aún así con 13 grados y medio? O sea, viticultura, o sea...
Probably meant the level of alcohol is more higher. But I don't believe in the phenolic maduration.
Okay.
This is a very dog concept.
Yeah.
The old Rioja is 11 alcohol, and it's probably that very big production. For me, I don't believe in the phenolic maduration. No tiene sentido. No creo en el concepto de maduración fenólica.
So for you, you think it's your varieties, the difference between the varieties as well?
Maduración fenólica. Los vinos muchas veces tienen 11 grados y tienen que chaptalizarlos. Y los fenoles están, los taninos están perfectos, ¿no? Yo creo que la maduración fenólica se hizo este concepto pensando en vinos de variedades con taninos muy verdes como Cabernet, como Malbec, como... yo creo que la maduración fenólica en variedades que son más ligeras, como Pinot o como Mencía o como otras variedades, no es importante. Eso es lo que yo creo.
Sí, sí, exacto.
Do you want to translate a little bit from what he said? I can also do
yeah. Going backwards then, because I can't remember everything from the beginning, but it will come. But he's saying that it doesn't make any sense. And well, first of all, he's saying that he doesn't believe in phenolic ripeness.
Yeah.
And second, it doesn't make any sense. And third, the concept of the idea of like phenolic ripeness maybe was invented for like Bordeaux varieties like Cabernet or Merlot. And fourth, varieties like Pinot or Mencía, Caino even. No, the concept of phenolic ripeness in these varieties is it's it doesn't make sense.
So he's looking for the ripeness. We put phenolic on the side and we only look for the ripeness on the wine. When it's ready for him, so it can be ready on 12, 13.5, it doesn't matter. You look for the fresh and the ripeness is already there.
For the fresh, for the best kind of fruit at this certain percent of alcohol.
So I will change small my question, Raul. So for your ripeness, is what you do something special also in the vineyard, your vineyard work? I want to talk a bit about how you work the vines. Do you do anything special in the vines? How the work in the vine is going in the state for you?
Bien, Raúl.
No te digo.
You don't hear me. So how is the vines, the work in the vines? What is your viticulture in the vines? A little bit to tell us.
It's very normal. We work in organic. We work the soil it's possible to work with a small tractor. The other vineyards more difficult to work. We work with the horse. It's a normal viticulture. It's very respect to the vineyards. It's very important. Don't have more big number of treatments. Only 1, 2, 3 in difficult vintage, and always is copper and sulfur. No more. No. It's very simple. No.
So where do you work with the horses as well? In which vineyard?
We work with the horses in Rapolao.
Yeah.
Because it's high inclination in the Ultra Rapolao. In the new projects in the mountain to 1,000 meters of altitude, I buy this project to Palacios. This wine, this year will be the first vintage.
Wow.
I bought this project 2 years before. It's impossible to work with the machines, and I have two horses to work.
Amazing.
It's very higher. It's wines with a 10.5, 11 alcohol. It's very incredible project. That is the harvest is 1 month after to Valtuille. It's very incredible project.
And which varieties there is working there?
No, it's the same. It's the same.
The same. And the area?
It's only 20 minutes or 10 minutes to Valtuille.
Oh, wow.
It's more higher than Corbion.
Amazing. Okay.
The more famous parcel is the parcel more higher in Bierzo.
The highest parcel in Bierzo. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So we are looking for that in a few years or the next year. And
Daniel.
Yes.
I hope to see you in Bierzo this year, if it's possible, because it's something that you must see. We were there with Ellie and Kuti and David in... ¿Cuándo fue, Raúl? Cuando subimos ahí con Pueblo Burgundy y estaba nevando, estaba todo blanco. Eso es otoño después de la vendimia 2019.
No, fue primavera.
Fue primavera 19.
Maybe 1 year and a half ago, and to see that. So we really hope soon enough all of us can be there, and we can move a little bit, Raul, to tell us about our last wine of the tasting, the Rara Avis.
Okay, this is the more rare wine that I produced. It's in the area of León. It's very short parcel. It's around 1,000 meters of altitude, but it's flat. Here the climatology is continental, no rain. It's possible to make wines with a very higher alcohol and very higher acidity. The vineyards, no, it's necessary the treatments because there are not humidity. Here the grape is Prieto Picudo. It's very old vineyard, 100 years old, around. Wow. It's after the phylloxeric. This wine is making without sulfites. It's around 6 months of skin contact, 100% with the stamps, and
100% full bunches.
Yeah, and 6 months in skin contact. Generally, the fermentation without sulfites, and the wine is put in the cavern, in the barrel, for 5 years more, and never racking, never, nunca se rellena, never.
No filling,
no top up.
No top up.
The malolactic fermentation It's 2 years after, and it's in this moment when we put the first part of sulfite after the malolactic and continue 3 years more with fluor. After 5 years, take off the barrel, filter, no put sulfites, go to the bottle. For me, this wine is very young. It's necessary 5, 10 years old. I remember the wines from Italy. Is the more classic styles of Nebbiolo. Profile to this grape.
Wow. So I will just say a little bit, you know, because in Hebrew, who didn't understand completely, 1 second. Yeah.
It's a very good moment to drink. Very complexity, because have a very, you can look the part more oxidative of the wine. It's very dry tannins. I think that will be more interesting. Open this bottle 5, 6, 10 years before. I drink the first vintage was 2006, and it's very good to drink now.
Wow. Okay, so I will just let a little bit a short explanation of what you said in English, also in Hebrew, that everyone can understand, because it's really something special here. אז טוב, אז קודם כל אנחנו מדברים פה אולי על אחד הדברים הכי מיוחדים שיש. אנחנו מדברים עם אנשים פה שכל כך אוהבים את האזור של הז'ורה, אנחנו מדברים פה קצת על עשיית כזה באדום, מה שנקרא, כמה ביטחון צריך בשביל לעשות את זה ביין אדום. אנחנו מדברים פה על יין שנבצר, אשכולות שלמים, הולך בעצם למצב שיש כאן אשריה במשך 6 חודשים. מדברים פה על 180 יום של אשריה עם הקליפות, עם הכל, מישהו מדברים פה על יין כתום, כל הדברים, פה בן אדם פשוט לקח גפנים בנות 100, 180 יום, ואחרי זה עוד 5 שנים בחבית, כשלא עושים, בעצם לא ממלאים את החבית.
כלומר, נותנים לחבית להתחמצן
כמה שהחבית יורדת, ונוצרת שכבה מסוימת של חיידקים, שבעצם סוג של שומרת ונותנת לו בעצם להתפתח, להתחמצן קצת לאט, ולעבור תהליך עישון סופר 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 מיוחד, וזה באמת יין שהוא חד קרן אמיתי. זה לטעום חד קרן ממש, יין שהוא ייחודי מאוד בעשייה. מה שהוא אומר שבשבילו, היין הזה, אנחנו פתחנו אותו 5-10 שנים מוקדם מדי. זאת אומרת, פתחנו, אוקיי? לטעימה כמובן, אבל הוא ממליץ לכל מי שקונה את היין הזה, לפתוח אותו בעוד 5-10 שנים. הוא היום שותה את 2006, כי היום התנינים קצת יותר קשוחים, הפרי עדיין לא בחוץ, והוא צריך להתפתח עוד זמן.
אני חושב שעל הפלט מרגישים את האיכות של היין, על הפה, סליחה, מרגישים את האיכות של היין. אני מסכים שהאף כאילו משחק פה את המשחק של המחומצן יותר, ובאמת ריחות יותר שלישוניים, אבל הפה מלא בפרי, מלא פרי. וזה אני חושב הסוד של היין, זה כן הוא מצליח לקחת את זה, זה ממש אני מאוד מאוד מרגיש לי ואן ז'ון פה הסגנון גם, ככל שזה עובר לזה, האף מחומצן, כן? האף יש פה אף שהוא עם יותר חמצון,
לא מחומצן, יש פה חמצון, יש פה שמירה על ה...
והפן פשוט נכנס לרעננות ומראה את כל הרעננות שהולכת לבוא בעתיד, כי החמצן זה מה שגורם לו, זה מראה איפה היין יעמוד עוד 5-10 שנים, ואני חושב
אין זה הולך להיות רק יותר ויותר רענן בכל שנה כדי לבטא את עצמו. זה בעצם מה שקורה בדיוק אותו דבר. שתינו השבוע את אוברנואה, ויו סווניה, הוא יהיה בעצם, כן שעושים לו טופינג, אבל לא משנה, שנת 2003. ככל שהשנים עוברות, היין נהיה יותר ויותר רענן. זה גם מה שהולך להיות כאן. בעצם, ככל שהשנים יעברו, אנחנו נקבל את האיזון בין החלק של החמצון לפרי, וככל שאנחנו נקבל את הפרי קצת יותר בוגר, אנחנו נגיע למצב נקודת האמצע שזה יתאזן, ואז בשלב מסוים הפרי ילך אחורה, ואז כבר בכלל לא ירגישו את הרמה של החמצון בגלל השנים. וזה מדהים, כי בעצם פה השיטה שומרת על היין לאורך זמן, והוא רק הולך להיות יותר רענן עד שהוא מגיע לפיק הזה, של עוד 5-10 שנים, ששם יהיה הפיק המדהים לשתות אותו, הוא בטח יישאר שם ככה במשך עוד 5-10 שנים קדימה, ואז תתחיל איזושהי ירידה, אבל זה יין מבריק. That was my short explanation about the wine.
Tomorrow is coming René Barbier, his son. He's coming to the Piraat to visit to me tomorrow. We are going to the cave. It's a cavern. Es una cueva. Cueva es cave, ¿no?
¿Cómo? Cueva es cave.
Es cave.
Sí, cave.
We are going to testing any barrels that I have of this wine in this moment from 2011, 12, 13. I have these barrels, no bottle. This barrel is only for look the pollution because I would like to know what is the limit in barrel. 10, 15 years, I don't know. Without fights, empty barrels. Tomorrow I going to test in the old barrels in the cave to Prieto Picudo area, to the León.
Can I make a question there?
You can ask me or Raul?
Both, but so.
Estaba diciendo que mañana que viene René Barbier, hijo.
Sí, con el padre también.
Vamos a ir a la cava a catar.
אז בעצם,
barricas del 11, del 12, del 13, del 14.
בעצם, I will sell something in Hebrew, one second, אז בעצם מה שראול אומר שמחר בעצם מגיע אליו לביקור, והוא הולך לטעום ביחד את היין הזה שהוא שמר חביות בעצם מבציר 11, 12, 13, כי הוא באמת רוצה לראות כמה אפשר ליישן את היין הזה בחבית, עד שהוא, מה הגבול שלו בעצם, מה הגבול שלו, ואז להחליט מדי פעם כנראה בבצירים שונים, מה לעשות עם זה.
כן. אני חושב שזה באמת רעיון...
Jorgen, for your question. Yes.
I was just curious about René Barbier and René Barbier Jr., Senior, Junior. You know, they have a, you know, the history of Piraat, I guess, and you know, absolute pioneers. First vintage in '89, starting the whole thing together with the other 4 these days mystic producers of the Piraat. 5 of them together with the 6th one that nobody knows about. But the first vintage of La Ermita, basically, or that vineyard, that is René Barbier Senior, and they come to Bierzo, and you go to Valdevimbre tomorrow to see Raravi's cellar and taste the very, very old vintages of the Raravis, the Prieto Pecudo.
Yeah, we spoke, I translated as well, to see how far these wines can go, how far the wine can go in the barrel and still be fresh and see the experimental. I mean, that was a great show, and I mean, to finish with this wine, and before, you know, sometimes we don't think, but we can say that we thought about, but this 2 trio have a little bit connection between. The first 2 are really the ones, you know, the wine, the every year wine, the same winemaking, same vintage, different vineyards, and then go to the 3rd wine, which is kind of a breakthrough. So the first one with breaking through with the 2005 before of the Maria Luisa Lazaro, which brought Rias Baixas to what it is today and what people look more. And the same what we did now with Raul Perez, having these 2, the Puolosa and Rapolao, first two vineyards, one by each other facing different, you know, see the difference on the same vintage and why to do these two different wines, two different vineyards, and finish again with a wine that is a breakthrough in wine thinking and having such a wine with the voile, with having, you know, wine that is aged like we know from the Jura area, and see how you can do it with in red. And aging so much time and having so much freshness and these wines. And I mean, we can see now why they are such a good friends and why these two trios are very similar. Even we brought such a similar collection, to each other. So, and Raul, thank you very much also for being with us here.
This is the new project.
And I'm sure soon enough we come to see you with a new project and have it, and our clients would love it. We don't see it very well. We have a lot of white.
It's the Rapollau label, so you can see it in the light.
Yes.
It's like a white label.
Is it all white, Raul, or you wrote something on it? Is it all white? Because we have, you know, from the computer, a white label.
It's 50. It's Valdecañada. It's in the mountain.
Wow.
We're testing this wine in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Oh, that's the Sous-Voile, right?
That's
in Macau. In Macau.
Yeah, in Macau.
Yes,
that was, I mean, the show, and I think soon enough, soon we will have this wine in Israel. We will have it?
We will have it.
We will
have it. No problem. No problem. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Salute. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I mean, it was terrific to have you and see everyone here. You have a big fans in Israel already before the wines came, and you see how many people are here with us today. I mean, that's amazing thing. Amazing. Not many companies in the world had such a huge clients. Everyone got the small bottles that you will see here, between 50 ml and 100 milliliter for each of our clients. You can see they all have them. They got them in the last 2 days, today, yesterday, and we are filling them in the morning and bringing everybody until afternoon. So everyone have the wines tasting with you, and it's history in Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jürgen, thank you very much for translating, of course.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Amazing. Just before I disconnect, I don't know, I think you already answered all the questions, but all the questions, or if there is anything, okay, I think it's...
Yeah, we let everyone say a little bit applause and cheers and everything for the winemaker. צלל יפתח לכולם. כן, אז אתם בהחלט יכולים להגיד בכל שפה שתרצו. תודה באמת פה לראול ורודריגו שהיו איתנו, ויורגן גם.
Muchas gracias, my friends. It was great tasting.
Raul, and thank you very much. Really.
Thank you. Great wines. Thank you.
Bye bye.
תודה רבה. Thank you very much. See you soon in Spain.